Let me ask you something. If home prices were really going to come down, wouldn't we be seeing it clearly by now? We've had higher mortgage rates for quite a while. Inventory has improved in certain parts of the country, and buyers aren't bidding aggressively the way they were 2 or 3 years ago. So it makes sense that a lot of people are thinking, okay, this has to be the year prices finally fall. But once you step back from the noise and focus on the numbers, the situation isn't as simple as it feels. Yes, the market has shifted. Yes, things have cooled down from the frenzy we experienced, but cooling down and coming down on prices are two very different things. So let's take a look at what the numbers are actually saying and what this means to you if you're thinking of buying or selling in the remainder of 2026. No drama or fear-based predictions, just data and perspective. Key point number one, let's start with what the national data is actually telling us. The Federal Housing Finance Agency, or FHFA, releases a quarterly price index that tracks homes values across the country, and in its most recent report from the first quarter of this year, prices are still up compared to the same time last year. The growth rate is much slower than what we saw during the pandemic surge, but it's still very positive. Let's take a look at Zillow. Zillow's home value index shows that U.S. home sales are slightly higher than they were a year ago, and we're talking about modest growth. Not dramatic or overheated, but certainly not in negative territory either. Then we have Redfin's 2026 housing forecast. Redfin is projecting roughly a 1% price increase nationally this year. That's steady and measured, and it lines up with what we're seeing from other reports. That's a very different environment from 2021, and it's also very different from the collapse we saw in 2008. So when you step back and look at the broader picture, the pattern is consistent. Growth is cool, things are more balanced, but prices aren't falling nationally. Key point number two, why it feels like prices should be falling. Higher mortgage rates have cooled demand, yes, but they've also locked many homeowners into low-rate mortgages from a few years ago. That limited number of people willing to sell because giving up a 3% rate for a 6 or 7% is a big jump. So supply never surged the way some expected. In many markets, we're still dealing with relatively tight inventory. Not extreme shortages like before, but not oversupply either. That balance is what's holding prices steady. Key point number three, what could happen to the rest of 2026? Looking ahead, most forecasts remain conservative but steady. Redfin expects about a 1% growth nationally this year. Zillow is anticipating modest appreciation as well. FHFA's data continues to show year-over-year gains. When several independent reports show the same trend, it doesn't mean that every city is experiencing the exact same conditions. Local conditions can vary depending upon inventory levels, job growth, buyer demand in that area, but nationally the data does not support the idea of a big housing downturn. What we're seeing is normalization. The market has shifted from the rapid acceleration to a steadier pace, and that's actually healthier long term. Key point number four, what it means for buyers and sellers. What does this mean for buyers? If you're waiting for a dramatic drop in home prices, the data suggests that may not be a likely outcome. However, buyers today have advantages that didn't exist a few years ago. Less bidding competition, more inventory choices, more negotiation flexibility. In other words, you may not see lower prices, but you may get better terms. And in many cases, that can be just as much of an impact to your overall investment. Now, what does it mean for sellers? For sellers, this is a no longer name your price market. Pricing strategy, presentation, and preparation matter. Buyers are comparing more carefully now. They have options, and that means positioning is everything. The sellers who win in this market are the ones who price realistically from the start and present their home in a way that it stands out. So are home prices finally coming down in 2026? Nationally, the data says no. What we're seeing instead is stabilization. The rapid run-up we experienced a few years ago has leveled off, but broad price declines just aren't showing up in the national numbers. If you're wondering what this means to your home's value or your buying power, let's take a closer look at your specific market. You can reach out and schedule a one-on-one strategy call with us. We'll build a plan that makes sense for you. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on future market updates and practical real estate insights. I'm Jimmy Dove with the Dove team, Northern Neck Realtors. Thank you. Bye.